In May of 1973, on the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom, there were two children who met a strange entity that was never seen again. Before we dig deeper in the story, a little context is needed. This story comes from details recorded by the British UFO Research Association after interviewing two children, a 7-year-old girl given the pseudonym Faye, and an unnamed boy that we could only assume is around the same age. My sole source for this document is the British UFO Research Association's report on this story. I could leave it in the description below. The children were playing next to a golf course near Lake Common in the town of Sandown when they heard a weird wailing noise in a small meadow nearby. The noise was compared to an ambulance siren, and curiosity took over the children. Like children do, they get curious, and they followed the noise to the swampy meadow. Now that the children were in the meadow nearby the Sandown airport, the noise had stopped completely. Even though the noise stopped, their curiosity was already piqued, and they continued on the wooden bridge. As they were crossing, a blue-gloved hand popped out, and out came an unknown figure who belonged to the hand, and he dropped a book in the water and fumbled around trying to grab it from the ground. They watched a stranger hop over to a metallic hut as if he was walking on the moon. The hut looked like a temporary metal shed used on construction sites. As they were crossing a wooden footbridge over a narrow brook, a blue-gloved hand appeared from under the bridge and a strange figure emerged. The figure fumbled with a book, dropped it in the water, then splashed about to retrieve it. The two then watched the figure enter a metallic hut, similar to those used on building sites, except that it had no windows. It moved along with a strange hopping motion, with knees raised high. The kids grew impatient, I guess, and they got really bored of this guy because he wasn't really doing anything cool, and they started to wander off as the stranger took out what appeared to be a black knobbed microphone, the one that you usually see performers use, like comedians, musicians, and it had a wire attached to it. However, it isn't explained where the wire was going to. As soon as he brought the microphone out, the wailing noise came back, even louder than before, as if he was trying to get the attention of the children again. The noise was so loud, in fact, it horrified the boy and he started running away. But the noise quickly stopped and it was replaced by the stranger's voice. "Hello? Are you still there?" The voice sounded friendly enough for the kids, for some reason, and the children turned around and approached the stranger. And even though I said for some reason, I want to be completely clear about why this even happened. We have to keep in mind that this was in 1973, and I was also confused, so I did a little research. The whole stranger danger movement didn't happen until the late 70s, so as dumb as it sounds, it is fairly unsurprising that these kids approached him. So, from my research, the timeline matched the dumb kid situation. If you disagree with that, let me know. If you were alive back then. Frankly, I wasn't. But yeah, that was through my research. They approached him, and the stranger's description reads as follows. He was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders. He wore a yellow pointed hat, which interlocked with the red collar of a green tunic. A round black knob was affixed to the top of his hat, and wooden antennae were attached on either side. The face had triangular markings for eyes, a brown square of a nose, and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his paper white cheeks, and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves, and from below, his white trousers. Strangely, even though he was just verbal a minute ago, he used his book to communicate by writing in a notebook he dropped earlier. Like I said, he was just talking like 3 seconds ago, whatever. He would write in the book a series of words and would show the children. However, the words were in an unnatural order, so he would point to them the way that they should be read. Hello, and I am all colors Sam. Soon enough, the children learned that he could in fact talk. Well, what did I say? However, his speech was unclear and he could not move or open his mouth properly, which it's speculated that's why he was using the microphone, because he can't properly talk. They asked about his clothes, which were all ripped, and he told them he only had one set, so he could only wear those. Because of his strange white features, they asked if he was really a man. The answer was a chuckled no. They also asked if he was a ghost. The vague reply was, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way." "What are you then?" they continued, but only obtained the answer, "You know," with no further explanation. The stranger said he didn't have a name. That's what I was talking about. It's another inconsistency. He just called himself Sam. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Sam isn't a name to him, but to us, it's a name. Maybe it was an acronym. What I do know is it makes the introduction even more intriguing. He told the children that he's actually scared of people and is worried about getting attacked by them, and even admitted he would not fight back if he was attacked. Pussy. Wimp. I can't say that. Wimp. He invited them into his hut. Weird. And in a pre-stranger danger fashion, they crawled right through. They didn't even ask. They just went in. They did not care. The hut consisted of 2 floors. The first floor had blue-green wallpaper with dials, as if it was a spacecraft, maybe? And there was also wooden furniture and an electric heater. The second level had less room, but metal flooring. That's pretty much the only description of the second floor we got. The stranger got comfortable and took his hat off. It revealed white ears and brown hair. He told the children his meals consisted of berries, which he collected on the mainland near his other camp, and the water from the river after he would clean it. While he explained this, he put the berry on his ear, thrust his head forward, and made the berry disappear and then reappear in one of his eyes. And then he would repeat the thrusting motion, and the berry moved down to his mouth. To me, this is very hard to visualize. It took a lot of reading back like the same lines trying to understand what happened, but to my understanding, this is implying that maybe he has a helmet on and he puts the berry in a hole on the side of his helmet and he has to move a specific way to make it move down to his eye and then his mouth to eat it. But that's just speculation. The children talked to the stranger for more than half an hour and headed back to the golf course telling people they have just talked to a ghost, only to be laughed at. Why did nobody care these children were gone for half an hour in a nearby wooded area? Did they not care? They were gone for half an hour. They were just gone. They were gone for half an hour. For whatever reason, possibly because she was scared of getting laughed at by her father, Faye waited 3 weeks to tell him, who was given the pseudonym Mr. Y. Understandably, Mr. Y was very skeptical about the story, but was blown away by how detailed of a story Faye was telling him. Mr. Y thought about it for a bit and questioned the boy that was there as well, and despite being difficult to talk with, Mr. Y said that the boy confirmed that he had seen everything as well. It is also not clear what it means by the boy was difficult to talk with. Maybe he was younger and wasn't really good at talking, or maybe he had a disability. I don't know. I guess that's just left out. Maybe it isn't important. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Of course, Mr. Y knows this could all be a crazy story created by Faye. However, all of the bizarre and specific details started to convince him to believe what Faye was telling him was the truth. I get the impression that Faye was somehow taken into a bubble of alien reality created by the strange personage. He told them he had just made the hut. Also, Faye told me that while they were talking to this ghost, 2 workmen nearby were repairing a post. They paid no attention to the weird charade, as though they could not see it. In fact, Mr. Y had his own run-in with extraterrestrial activity before. Coincidentally, this is the part that gets a little weird because it starts making you think if Mr. Y just believed her right off the bat with what I am about to tell you. In October of 1970, Mr. Y was traveling through the village of Brading. and saw a large aircraft. He stopped the car to watch whatever it was fly low and hover over the River Yar in a swampy area. He saw a ring of 7 or more lights described as large spheres. In his words, like a bright red cherry. Between the cherry-colored lights were turquoise and white lights. He got back in his car, and the object followed behind him. Eventually, Mr. Y got out again and used his flashlight to signal to it for 10 minutes. As I'm reading this back again, he did not explain, as far as I remember, he did not explain why he signaled to it. I would not get out of my car and signal for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Do it once, and if nothing happens, you're like, oh shit, I'm screwed. Anyways, the aircraft weaved back and forth and followed him again once he continued to drive. When he got to his friend's house, the lights were still there, and when he left his house, they were still there waiting for him. The object seemed to be playing hide and seek with Mr. Y between the treetops, bouncing between them, hiding. In my opinion, it sounds as if it was spying on him. When he left, the lights finally disappeared for the night. However, this was not the last time he would ever see them, as he said that some nights he would occasionally notice balls of red light in the sky following him. But on March 1st, 1972, he had another story. I'll just read this one since it's pretty short. It was between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. and Mr. Y was perched on the cliffside of Compton Bay, having been driven there by an unexpected tidal surge seemingly caused, in part at least, by some form of droning underwater craft. From his vantage point, he observed 2 points of yellow light peering up at him like the eyes of some horrible sea monster. He guessed the eyes were not much more than 40 feet away and were just below the surface of the sea, like a sort of periscope. They disappeared, and as the tide gradually subsided, Mr. Y was able to get back to his car and drive home. Assuming this story is true, that was probably the most horrifying drive home you could possibly have. If you look into enough UFO encounters or UFO beliefs, it's a pretty popular theory that aircrafts go underwater or they land inside the water. They like go in the, I don't know. There's probably footage. I'll put something here. I don't know how to explain it. Aliens come from the water. That's what I'm saying. Anyways, Mr. Y claimed he never told his daughter anything about this, his experience, and a year after seeing the object in the water, his daughter would tell him the story about the spaceman she saw in a swampy meadow. Sam the Sandown Clown. Yeah, you get it. Of course, the daughter could have just been making this whole story up. You have to keep in mind we're talking about kids here. Maybe she was looking for attention, however that would require her to be an insanely detailed storyteller. Maybe Mr. Y didn't give Faye that much attention. I'm not trying to smear this guy's name. Or he could have been a great dad and she was telling the truth. Who knows? However, if it did happen, who or what could it have been? Was it a ghost? An alien? A robot? Ghost, alien, robot? Who knows? The description of the stranger seems to point towards being an alien, with some type of suit that just seemed to consist of strange shapes. Maybe it wasn't anything supernatural at all. It was just a strange man in the woods who, thankfully, just wanted to talk to these kids for whatever reason, like entertain them, like be a goofball. In all honesty, the implications of it being just a normal guy talking to children is a lot scarier than a ghost or an alien. So I truly hope that this is a ghost or an alien. Yeah, I'd rather it be an alien than a creepy dude. But anyways, that was a story of the Sam, that was the story of Sam, the Sandown Clown. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit the little thumbs up icon. It helps a lot. Subscribe if you want, please. Actually, not if you want. So yeah, subscribe right now, even if you don't want to. If I missed anything or you have anything to add, comment below, throw whatever you got at me. Thanks for watching. Drive safe, sleep good, enjoy the rest of your day at work or whatever else you're doing today. Stay healthy, and I hope to see you in the next one.